The Maritime Transportation Security Act of 2002 is a landmark piece of legislation designed to protect the nation's ports and waterways from a terrorist attack. The MTSA, in tandem with the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code, strengthens and adds new protective layers of defense to our nation's port security. The new MTSA security regulations cover vessels and facilities operating on or adjacent to waters subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. These regulations are found in Subchapter H of Title 33 of the Code of Federal Regulations. The Coast Guard is playing a key role in the implementation of these regulations. It is imperative that you understand your responsibilities to ensure that the regulations are enforced. The MTSA regulations are based on a perimeter and layered defense system. Part 101 is the perimeter. It discusses items common to most vessels and facilities. Parts 103, 104, 105, and 106 address the layers we must protect within our maritime transportation system. In this program, we will focus on Part 104, Maritime Security, Vessels, with special emphasis on the inspection of foreign-flagged freight vessels and towing vessels operating under an alternative security program. These are two types of vessels you will be required to examine. MTSA was a direct result of the attacks on America on September 11, 2001, the bombing of the USS Cole, and 15 years of studies on piracy and maritime security by the International Maritime Organization. U.S. Coast Guard maritime security inspectors must enforce many requirements of MTSA to protect America's ports and waterways from a terrorist attack or other transportation security incident. Coast Guard responsibilities include approving security plans for more than 9,500 vessels and 3,500 facilities to comply with MTSA. The Coast Guard must also guarantee that these vessels and facilities have implemented the plans and that the plans are working. With a stringent and thorough boarding program, the Coast Guard will examine and enforce foreign vessels' compliance with international security agreements. Vessels not in compliance may be denied entry into U.S. ports. MTSA regulations apply to other types of vessels, such as mobile offshore drilling units, tank ships, and passenger vessels. But many of the skills necessary to perform those types of examinations are common to skills employed during the security examinations of foreign freight vessels and towing vessels that you will see here. Note that some terms in the MTSA are different than those used in the ISPS code. For example, the ISPS refers to the Ship Security Plan, or SSP, and the Ship Security Officer, or SSO. The MTSA refers to Vessel Security Plan, or VSP, and Vessel Security Officer, or VSO. This is because the MTSA regulations apply to vessels other than ships, for example, barges and MODUs. These examinations require a great deal of skill and understanding of the ISPS code, the MTSA, and subsequent regulations. Deficiencies encountered during an ISPS-MTSA exam may be more subtle than deficiencies during a Port State Control Safety exam. Your ISPS-MTSA exam for a foreign vessel begins on the dock. You should begin by assessing from a distance the interface between the vessel and the facility. Look for security guards, video cameras, gates and fences, signage, gangway watches, escorting visitors, visitor and contractor ID checks, and possible badge issuance, depending on the maritime security level your port is in and the stated MARSEC level found in the vessel's notice of arrival information. As you approach the vessel, someone should see you. If a security guard or a roving patrol spots you, you know that the vessel and facility are effectively monitoring the area. Personnel are effectively performing their duties. If someone is there to greet you, you also know that the facility has already notified the vessel of your arrival. This proves that there is effective communications between the vessel and the facility. At the bottom of the gangway, you should review the declaration of security, if required, between the vessel and the facility prior to boarding the vessel. Requirements for declarations of security are dependent on the vessel type, Cargo and operation. Bear in mind that the captain of the port can require a DOS for any vessel or facility at any time and at any MARSEC level if he or she deems it necessary. The DOS may be required because of the port assessment or as the result of poor performance during a vessel boarding or facility inspection. At the top of the gangway or wherever you meet vessel personnel, you should, as soon as practicable, present your identification card. Coast Guard personnel will only show the front of their military ID cards. We will not surrender our military ID cards, and we will not allow any personal information to be recorded besides our name and rank. Care should be taken that information is not recorded from the back of the ID card, which contains our Social Security number and date of birth. You should state your business to the vessel master or designated agent. In this case, the gangway watch could suffice as a designated agent. This person should inform the master or ship security officer of your arrival. When this happens, you know there have been communications between the gangway watch and the master or SSO. From the gangway, you should continue closely observing ship security performance. Look out for screening of passengers or ship stores and cargo screening activities. See if the vessel is bunkering with the barge and examine the DOS, if required for that operation. Consider access control measures, such as locked doors that limit access to 1 or 2 points on the vessel. These measures could be as elaborate as a cipher lock on the vessel's bridge or as simple as a padlock on the vessel's potable water intake. A description of possible restricted areas is listed in the ISPS code. Remember, restricted areas must be marked on the ship. On a foreign vessel, you will not be able to review the restricted area of the vessel security plan without contracting government consent. Now you'll proceed to the vessel master. Repeat your intent you stated at the gangway and ask to see the vessel's continuous synopsis record and International Ship Security Certificate. Compare the CSR to Notice of Arrival information and check the parties listed per the Certificate of Registry. Examine the vessel Certificate of Financial Responsibility and Charterer's Fixture Note. A fixture note is an email or telex from the vessel operator that details the vessel's orders. It is the only way to verify a vessel's charterer, since some vessels change charterers every voyage. Although time charterers and voyage charterers will not appear on the CSR, charterer information should be compared to Notice of Arrival and missile information. If you encountered problems with any DOS, bring them up to the vessel master immediately. When you're looking at the Declaration of Security, be aware that various DOS forms are out there, and some are more clear than others in regard to who is responsible for what security function. This DOS is not sufficiently clear since both the vessel and facility security personnel have signed off on all activities. This DOS makes it clear who has the responsibility. Ask to see the records of previous declarations of security so you can assess the security measures at the vessel's last port. This will help you understand their overall ISPS compliance. It is important to conduct a deck walk of the vessel to verify its security posture. The CG 840 book and the ISPS Code Part B must be taken into account. Here are some examples of security problems. On the vessel's port side aft, notice that there are no grates on the vent intakes to the CO2 room and engine room. The CO2 room and engine rooms are restricted areas, and these vents can be considered restricted areas. This unsecured ladder on aft deck provides instant access to the bridge. Rope lockers may or may not be designated as a restricted area. When in doubt, check the vessel security plan if you are on a U.S. vessel. On a foreign flag vessel, the only indication may be a sign designating the space as restricted. These aft hatches provide access to the steering gear room. Here you see starboard side access leading to the emergency generator room and vessel food supply. Be aware of all hatches that might provide access to other areas. These starboard amidships hatches to cranes and cargo spaces seem to be unlocked. But it is quite possible that this door is locked from the inside. Inspectors should ask vessel crew to check to see if the doors are locked from the inside. An intrusion alarm could result if you open the wrong door without precautions. Here you see a forward deck anchor chain down and no buckler plates in place. Be especially mindful of access control for small man-sized spaces below decks and other areas that could conceal stowaways. Deck walk items should focus on observation of the equipment in place or not in place. If something is found that seems to create an unaddressed vulnerability, an amendment may be required to correct the situation. In addition, do not be ignorant of safety issues even though your focus is on security. In the event you find discrepancies or clear grounds for concern during your deck walk on a foreign vessel, discuss them with the ship's security officer or master. Examples of clear grounds and deficiencies are found in the ISPS Code and Navigation and Vessel Inspection Circular 0603. While asking questions in expanded examinations, it is important to assess the qualifications, duties, and responsibilities of the person with whom you are speaking. For example, assume you are discussing duties with a roving patrol deck seaman, who in the course of his patrol also checks the engine room and steering gear spaces.
If I see something suspicious, then I'll call the vessel security officer, let him know.
You would want to ask him how he would know if something were out of the ordinary in a space. Questions you ask the SSO or master about potential discrepancies require a higher level of expertise with the ISPS Code and MTSA regulations. For example, you may find that the vessel does not have roving patrols at MARSEC Level 2. That may not be a problem. A closer read of access control measures in ISPS reveals that a roving patrol at MARSEC Level 2 is generally used only during quiet hours, and a roving patrol is only one of many options to be used. In that case, you would probably ask the SSO what measures they have in place for access control at MARSEC Level 2. You are now at a critical point in the expanded examination. The SSO will probably answer in 3 ways. We are operating in accordance with our plan. We will take effective action. What do you want us to do? If the SSO indicates that their measures are in accordance with their security plan, have him or her show you the measures in place. If the SSO says that they will take effective action, then have him show you the effective action. Whatever you are shown, weigh it against the recommendations in Part B of the ISPS Code, depending on the port and vessel's MARSEC level. In some cases, it may become necessary to look at the vessel's security plan. Looking at the security plan for a foreign vessel should be done when it is the only way to verify or rectify noncompliance. With the consent of the master, port state control officers may look at portions of the security plan. Provisions in the plan relating to 7 subsections are considered confidential and require consent from the vessel's flag administration to view. Be sure to review Section 9.8.1 of Part A before asking to review portions of the security plan, to ensure you have authority to review a specific portion of the plan. For example, assume that you board a vessel at MARSEC Level 2 and the vessel bridge is marked as a restricted area, but the doors to the bridge are unlocked and the space is empty and unmonitored. In this case, looking at the vessel security plan would not help to verify noncompliance, since you found an unlocked and unmonitored restricted area. The bridge is equipped with locks on the doors per the security plan, but these locks are not in use. The restricted area section of a foreign vessel security plan is confidential and not allowed to be viewed by port state control officers unless both contracting governments agree to look at the plan. Contracting government in most cases would be the vessel flag state representative or recognized security organization. The ISPS Code gives a sample list of restricted areas. The vessel marked the bridge as a restricted area, therefore very little would be gained from looking at the security plan. Here's another situation. You board a vessel at MARSEC Level 1, and there is no gangway watch, just a log where you sign in on your own merit. You then enter the vessel house and meet a crew member who instructs you to go to the master's office without an escort. When you arrive in the master's office, he asks to see your ID and is very hospitable. But by now, you should have significant concerns about access control on this vessel. Your clear grounds are based on what you've seen: no gangway watch and no escort for visitors. You ask several questions relating to access control and other areas of security. Remember, when you expand the areas of security, you expand in all areas of security. To verify the SSO's responses, you could examine the access control portion of the security plan, with the master's or contracting government's consent. But do not ask for the plan without first examining the ISPS Code Part B. When you examine a foreign vessel's plan, you are in fact performing two activities. First, you are following up on the SSO's responses to your questions. Secondly, you are verifying that their plan takes into account Part B of the ISPS Code. This is why you must reference Part B before looking at the plan. Remember, however, that Part B of the ISPS Code contains guidance or recommended options to implement provisions of Part A, and compliance with the ISPS Code does not guarantee compliance with the MTSA regulations. Foreign vessels must comply with 33 CFR Parts 101 and 103 in their entirety. They are deemed compliant with 33 CFR Part 104 if they possess a valid International Ship Security Certificate, with the exception of 4 regulations: 104.240, Implementation and Coordination of MARSEC Levels; 104.255, Declarations of Security; 104.292, Special Requirements for Ferry and Passenger Vessels; and 104.295, Special Requirements for Cruise Ships. Implementation and coordination of MARSEC levels applies to foreign vessels possessing a valid International Ship Security Certificate, or ISSC. Substantial compliance with ISPS and MTSA regulations is evidence of effective coordination of MARSEC levels. At MARSEC Level 3, the captain of the port may require vessels to perform activities such as waterborne security control, means to tow the vessel away from the dock, armed security guards for the vessel, and/or means to survey the vessel for explosive devices below the waterline. These activities are not required by the ISPS Code. However, the COTP is allowed to require them under MTSA regulations. Control action aboard a foreign vessel is based upon full compliance with the ISPS Code and MTSA regulations. Control actions are related to the level of compliance that they attain. The type of control action necessary is often a question of judgment. For example, suppose that a vessel is found to be seriously deficient in their ISPS MTSA requirements. Our PSC experience would trigger us to immediately detain the vessel, but this may not be the best solution. The presence of a vessel that is seriously deficient in its security measures represents a threat to the port or facility where it resides. The expulsion of the vessel should be considered. The decision to expel a vessel depends on whether it can effectively attain the required MARSEC level or respond to a breach of security or transportation security incident. Alternative Security Programs, or ASPs, are currently approved for several types of inspected and uninspected vessels. The alternative security programs include standards created by third-party or industry organizations that provide an equivalent level of security to that established by the Maritime Security Regulations in 33 CFR Subchapter H. Alternative security programs are approved by GMP and regulated under 33 CFR 101. Whichever program is utilized, it must be appropriate for their service and implemented in its entirety. Some vessels have alternative security programs that require inspections. Security inspectors examine these vessels according to a set schedule. Uninspected ASP vessels are inspected based on risk, but they must be examined for compliance with their ASP by 31 December 2006. Owners or operators may elect to implement measures that go beyond the measures described in the ASP. but they may never substitute or neglect measures that are required. When a security inspector attends a vessel with an alternative security program, whether inspected or uninspected, it will be the first time that the vessel-specific part of the plan will be examined by Coast Guard personnel. On uninspected ASP vessels, such as towboats using the alternative security program of the American Waterways Operators, your role as a security inspector will require you to wear two hats, one as a compliance regulator and one as an educator. Although towboat operators are seasoned expert mariners, they still may benefit from your security experience. In your discussion, try to stick to the American Waterways Operators Plan, which has a cross-reference table of ASP plan parts and 33 CFR requirements. Your ASP inspection will begin by interviewing the vessel master, who may also be the vessel security officer. In fact, the company security officer, the vessel security officer, and the master may be the same person, depending on the size of the company, the manning of the vessel, and whether or not the vessel operates in more than one COTP zone. You will examine their complete ASP plan and their letter to the Coast Guard Marine Safety Center sent prior to July 1, 2004, declaring that they will have implemented an alternative security program. To gauge the expertise of the person you are interviewing, have him demonstrate to you the measures that they have in place for the current MARSEC level. Have him show you the measures in place. This is a far better approach than a hypothetical discussion and critical to your inspection. Assess the vessel's communication protocols, restricted area placement and measures, access control methods, monitoring of the vessel and personnel accountability, and what the vessel will do when performing vulnerable operations, such as bunkering and stores deliveries. Look at previous declarations of security from vessel to vessel and vessel to facility interfaces. Then conduct a drill to test the plan to determine the crew's competency with security procedures and response. Many towing vessels and passenger vessels provide services on a seasonal basis. For example, in some areas, towing vessels that carry heating oil barges in the winter may change to aggregate barge service in the summer. In some cases, passenger vessels will carry fewer passengers in the colder months. For a vessel with seasonal operations, a plan must be submitted and approved if it is subject to 33 CFR 104 at any time. However, the plan may be written to allow variable security measures based on the actual operations of the vessel or as the vessel's operating conditions change. Such a vessel may not be able to use an alternative security program unless the seasonal operation was written into the plan. During a drill, the inspector will verify that the vessel security officer has trained the crew, that the measures outlined in the vessel security plan are executed correctly, and that these measures adequately address a security threat. The success of a drill is somewhat subjective. However, certain goals must be accomplished in a drill for it to be successful. The measures contained in the VSP must be fully implemented. Correct actions must be taken by the crew and others on board. The VSO must effectively demonstrate control and communication. The situation must achieve a positive resolution. The inspector should critique the drill with the VSO and discuss corrective action as necessary. The inspector will then direct the owner to submit an amendment in writing to the regulations that will correct any deficiencies. The inspector may accept proof of participation in an area maritime security exercise to meet the requirement for an annual exercise, but the owner must furnish proof of participation. The Coast Guard intends to aggressively enforce the requirements of the Maritime Transportation Security Act of 2002 and subsequent regulations contained in Title 33 Code of Federal Regulations Part H. Along with other tremendous advances in maritime security over the past 2 years, the implementation of security plans for vessels and facilities will further protect our country from terrorist attacks and other transportation security incidents. Your efforts as a maritime security inspector are crucial to a safer and more secure environment in our ports and on our waterways.